The action continues now from Innsbruck, Austria, with the BMW Sprint World Cup. A moment ago, Zeman Pavlichenko of Russia captured the men's competition. We turn our attention now to doubles. 15 qualifiers in today's competition. Start list coming up in just a moment. As you see, temperatures holding pretty steady as they have all day long under sunny skies in the Tyrolean Alps. Hi again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer. We get set to count them down to the Italian team, Rieder and Rassner of Italy, who won yesterday's doubles competition, their first career win. But there will be a lot of other doubles squads standing in the way, including the Germans, the Austrians, and the Latvians. To tell us a little bit more as we check out this start list, I introduce to you once again from the United States Luge program, Gordy Scheer. And Gordy, the sprint awaits, and there is no way we can predict who's going to do well.
Certainly not, and that's the beauty of the sprint competition. And, you know, taking out the start curve, making it less of a factor will make this a fun one to watch.
Starting off the fun is Chmielewski and Kowalewski from Poland. They qualified on the number, 15th place yesterday in the two-run race. This is the third to last weekend of action, with the World Championships next week in Germany, then the World Cup finale to be held in Switzerland.
See them exit the start curve, which is curve number 6, and passing underneath the start where that red light turns to green and illuminates on the ice. It's a pretty cool sight. Short run down here to finish the curve, finish curve 14, going uphill, and there's your finish.
30.231 is their time. Less important, but somewhat of an indicator. Their speed, 68.1 miles per hour. That's actually decent speed from such a lower start.
Yeah, it is certainly. Speed is a good indicator going into the initial velocity that they carry when they cross that line is the number you'll see in your right, and that's a good indicator of how well they've driven the start curve, really.
The Canadians are up now. Tristan Walker, Justin Smith, fourth place finishers at the Olympics. Second place in the Olympic relay. They do tap that right wall, and that leads to subsequent problems here at the start.
They were so close to doing a really nice start. They just hit that right wall. It brushed them away when they hit the right wall. They ricocheted to the left and then went very late and created all kinds of extra problems for themselves, and just got it together as they crossed over that starting line. But to carry velocity at this point is going to be very difficult for this Canadian team.
The weekend started with such promise, including a victory in the Nations Cup race qualifying for the World Cup on Friday, but they've fallen off. The two veteran Canadians and Olympic medalists in with a time of 31.087, and that 0.8 of a second deficiency, Gordy, shows you just how much an early mistake will cost you.
Yeah, it's costly indeed. Decent lines down here in the lower labyrinth, but the damage has already been done, unfortunately.
Well, they can put this in the rearview mirror as they drive over to Germany later tonight or tomorrow morning. Goyeka and Gam now on board, the first of 3 German doubles teams. You know, and we mentioned drive over to Germany. Actually, all of these athletes, coaches, and officials need to be tested for COVID before they go anywhere and leave Austria. And then again tomorrow when they arrive in Bavaria.
Yeah, it's the new reality of luge racing in the 2020-21 season. So, not a bad looking run here so far.
They're going to need to hit a home run if they hope to make the World Championship roster. They've performed probably less successfully than Orla Munda and Gubitz, the other German sled not competing this weekend. But a good run there, 30.202 for Robin and David from the Winterberg area, as we certainly know if they flip that sled over.
Curve 9 exit. A little bit of ice cut as they made that transition from the corner to the flat. Be interesting to see if the track record's going to fall here, Tim.
It fell earlier today in the men's competition twice for the top two finishers, Pavlichenko of Russia and Fischnaller of Italy. So here is the first of two consecutive Russians today, Kashkin and Korshunov. Their start speed a little bit slower than the Germans.
Nice between curves 8 and 9. For the doubles, having a little bit of height in the middle of the corner is really the name of the game, as opposed to the men who we saw earlier. That extra speed makes it a little bit easier to carry the height through the middle of the curve.
As a bottom man, Gordy, do you wait for an indication from the top guy when you've crossed the finish line, or do you know just as well?
You know. Yeah, you've got peripheral vision. You know the course. You've, at least in my case, I'd driven it as a single slider enough to have awareness.
It's a solid run by the Russians, full 1/10 of a second up on Germany, with Poland in third in the early going here. Surprising day yesterday in the World Cup racing in Innsbruck with no Russians in the top 10. Best placing 11th by this duo, Denisov and Antonov. Pair of 29-year-old Olympic silver medalists, along with Ivanova and Demchenko at the 2014 Olympic Games.
Yeah, it was surprising, especially seeing as they had a strong world championship showing in all disciplines.
Other than Semen Pavlichenko, Innsbruck has not been kind to the Russians this week.
No, it must have been just a setup issue for a lot of the athletes, and Pavlichenko just figured it out.
We'll see if they can get onto the podium next week at the World Championships. They owned that event on their home track last year in Sochi. Right now, for these Russians, second place behind their teammates. It's Russia, and Germany, with the final 10 sleds still up.
See the body of the top man kind of shake a little bit laterally as they made the transition from corner to flat, which is going to happen. But the less of that you see, the better.
Latvia qualified 3 sleds into today's sprint competition. The first of them, 10th place yesterday, Oskars Gudramovic, Peteris Kalnins. Again, start clock, start speed happens pretty quickly in the doubles. The lower starts doubles in women.
Yeah, up by 5 thousandths. So you're splitting the driving duty in half here, Tim. You've got the driver in the back who's got contact with the shoulders, and the driver in front has contact with the feet, and it's just coordinating those efforts to get this thing down cleanly and smoothly.
In search of their first podium of the year, they've placed as high as 4th. Gudramovic and Kalnin at 30.015, taking the lead. Pretty solid run, right?
Yeah, definitely. It was more than respectable. Very good. So you see a little bit less of that lateral motion as they exited curve 9 and into 10 here. Middle to maybe a little left going into 11.
Next up, the Tobys, Wendel and Alt of Germany. They're in 3rd place in the World Cup standings, but coming off of a disappointing 8th place showing, or 9th place showing in yesterday's race. They also had a crash earlier this season, which for this pair happens about once a decade.
A nice line through the start curve that'll hopefully help these guys carry some speed down into the lower portion of the course, up by 0.02 of a second.
This is their 4th race this season on Innsbruck's track, and they've yet to podium. And that's a little surprising, given who we're looking at here.
Yeah, definitely. And I heard some noise between curve 8 and 9.
Second place right now. This is a pair that can't wait to get out of Innsbruck. I mean, they, of course, one of the best in the world, possibly the best ever, and shut off of the podium both weekends in Innsbruck.
Yeah, here's the exit. I think they lost their time one curve up. It sounded like there was some noise between the curve 8-9 transition, which I believe cost them.
Well, you can bet there'll be a force next week as they return home for the World Championships. Last time out, the World's 2016 in Königssee, the Tobys took gold. Now, Mueller and Frauscher from Austria. A new doubles team, but a good one in the top 6 in the World Cup standings.
I'm curious to see what these guys can do here. 4,000ths.
Their start speed was the 3rd fastest, I believe. Now out of curve 10. This is a big part of this track, especially in doubles, this labyrinth.
They're losing time where at a spot where theoretically I would think they would be gaining time.
3rd place, 30.085, and why would you think they'd gain it there? Because of their familiarity or because
home track, these guys have a lot of runs, and that's kind of from curve 9 down, I would think that they would be building time. And they stopped the loss of time. They were down by 600ths out of I think it was out of the Kreisel, and then they brought it to 700ths, which is really actually impressive. Usually, if you're bleeding time, you're bleeding time.
Austrians done. One more Austrian team to come. Banner day yesterday in the World Cup for Italy with 3 sleds in the top 7, including the first place team of Reeder and Rassner. Here's Nagla and Malaya, who finished 7th in yesterday morning's World Cup opening race.
Well, that was quite a drive that they were able to pull out of curve 6. Pardon me, between curves 5 and 6. Out of curve 6, sorry.
Well, to the point, Gordy, we'll get you back on there, just out of 10 now. No podiums this season for Nagler and Malaya, but plenty of top 10 finishes. That's a bit of a disappointment there, back 5 spots.
Yeah, I think maybe that aggressive drive that they did scrubbed a lot of speed off at the top. It's just...
One heat race can be stressful. I mean, these athletes, a lot of them face it in the Nations Cup and here again in the sprint, where you don't go from worst to first. Anyone can win. The first sled off of the mountain, the last one.
Sure.
So, I know in some Olympic sports, freestyle skiing, moguls comes to mind, that after the first run, you reshuffle the order, the start order based on your finish, but everyone starts with a fresh score. And that doesn't happen here in Luge, except in the sprint. Now Reeder and Keinswaldner.
On home ice. Taking a little peek going into curve 8.
This pair has had its best results this year in the 2 sprint events, both 4th place finishes in Innsbruck and in Winterberg.
Smooth run so far, but just a consistent falling behind here.
As they're in 5th place, so the Latvians continue to lead the way, and we still have 2 more Latvian sleds, but that's they're probably licking their chops. Bots and Pluma and Cheeks, if they've got things set up equally among the 3 teams.
I would think. Working the labyrinth curves 12, 13, and 14 right here, which is the finish curve.
Next up we have Egert and Benneken, 2nd place in the World Cup standings from Germany. Inexplicably, they have crashed twice this year. including here in Innsbruck in the sprint event in November. But on the best of days, they're the best of sleds in World Cup. In fact, they won the other sprint competition in Winterberg.
8 thousandths up. Position slightly higher than I've seen from these guys in the past.
Maintaining the advantage. First team we've seen to challenge the Latvians over the last 4 or 5. And let's check this out, a 29.969. So a great result for Egert and Bennigan. And it's going to be a very fun rivalry at work next week at the World Championships, as Egert and Bennigan will look to unseat the Tobys on the Tobys home turf. And of course, the Austrians and Latvians will also have a say in that World Championship race.
That was a great exit of 9. The sled was just so quiet coming off of there. You didn't see a lot of that lateral motion. The sled didn't cut any ice. That was textbook.
Rookies of the year in the sport of luge on course now, Bats and Pluma from Latvia. They earned a podium a couple of weeks ago on their home track, perhaps a season or two before anyone would have expected this. And they've backed that up with pretty solid performances across the board, including a 5th yesterday here in Austria.
200th out. This is going to be interesting to watch. If they can have a smooth bottom, they weren't quite as good off of 9 as Egert and Bennigan.
In fact, they've tripled that deficiency from one split to the next.
Yeah, they'll be about 10th back.
Yep, just about a 10th. In 3rd place right now. All the same, with 4 remaining, it'll be a top 7. Another really great showing for a team whom we're going to see around here for a while in the discussion, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. These guys are really impressive. That was still a nice exit, just not quite as perfect as Egert and Bennigan. And I think that's where they lost some time.
Now the fight for the podium. And the next 2 sleds are no strangers to the podium, as they've 1 week or another. One of these sleds, if not both, have earned top 3 placings. Stoy and Kola look to extend their World Cup lead over Egert and Bennigan. To do that, they will first try to be faster than the Germans in this run.
Some pressure here for these guys. I'm sure placed squarely on their own shoulders by themselves. They want to win this race, and it's going to be tight.
They swept the 2 races here in Innsbruck to open the season. Then they followed that up with a 3rd consecutive win in Altenburg and a 4th last week.
Boy, it's close. 2 thousandths. It's going to come down to who can negotiate these last few corners here better. They're still in the green.
Thomas Joy, Lorenz Kohler move into the lead, move onto the podium, and they will extend their World Cup lead in the double standings. I don't think they'll clinch it today, but I mean, you still have the race in Winterberg, in San Moritz. They may clinch it. We'll figure out all of that math once we've seen the final 2 sleds.
They were certainly happy. Decent exit out of 9, but nice position. They look very tight, aerodynamic on the sled.
I believe they entered the race with about, they may have clinched it. We'll check that out. But
they're definitely celebrating.
Yeah, let's talk about the matter at hand here. Sheiks and Sheiks of Latvia, they just keep getting better and better, 35 and 37 years old, and they had some Olympic medals in 2010 and 2014, but much more consistent World Cup results over the last couple of years.
They are known for building speed at the bottom, and these lines are looking very good so far, but I don't know if it's going to be, I don't think they're going to be able to do, although they're moving in the right direction, but not quite as smooth as the Germans down and the Austrians down at the bottom in the last few curves.
That's a lot of time to make up, but they do it by 1,000th of a second. Unbelievable, Gordy.
Me and my big mouth.
Knocking on the door of possibly their 4th career World Cup win, all in the last couple of seasons. Look at that, 1/1000th of a second. separating these top two podium finishers.
On paper, it shouldn't have happened, I honestly have to say, but they were just carrying a lot of speed with them, so I happily stand corrected. Good for these guys.
Well, the Latvians have Olympic medals dating back a decade. This Italian team made personal history yesterday with their first ever World Cup win. Ludwig Rieder and Patrick Rasner were clearly the class of the field. They looked picture perfect, Gordy, in both runs yesterday.
Yeah, and this race is not over.
Check it out, though. Already 200s up.
Wow, beautiful out of 9. Looking very good. Oh, it's going to be tight, though.
This is where the Latvians found so
Yeah,
much speed.
Absolutely.
It will be Italy or Latvia.
Oh!
It's Latvia, as the Italians lost all sorts of time down there at the bottom. In fact, the Germans ended up back on the podium as a result of that. Egert and Bennigan keeping that World Cup standing tight. But congratulations to the brothers, Joris and Andris Šīks. Their 4th career World Cup victory, all, Gordy, in the last 2 years.
A little time lost on the exit of 9. You could see some ice being cut. But I honestly, I don't know where they lost it.
That's
like
a
they
lot
were carrying,
of time. I
yeah,
mean,
they were carrying so much speed.
And just based on what we saw from them yesterday, where they just kept picking up time from start to finish.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Still, they'll walk away heads held high with their first victory to go along with today's 5th. Congratulations to the Latvians. They take it over Austria and Germany. 2 Latvians in the top 4, 3 Latvian sleds in the top 6, as they are showing some true doubles domination around the world of luge this season.